If you can get your hands on some nice organic gluten-free brown rice, then you can easily make a lovely fine brown rice flour that you can use in all of your gluten-free baking. Now, if you're wondering why on earth would I want to spend the time making my own homemade brown rice flour when I can just go to the store and buy it? And to be honest, I've thought the same thing, but it is so easy and simple to make. And if you've had the experience of heading to the store, looking to buy some brown rice flour and having them be totally sold out, heading to more than one store and still to not be able to find it, you've felt that frustration, and you'll be very happy to know that it is quick and easy to make your own brown rice flour at home that will be just as good or maybe even better than the ones you can buy at the store. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how you can do it in just 3 simple steps. So go ahead, pause this video and grab your mise en place. When you're ready, I'll meet you back here. So what we're going to do is just take about 2 cups, and you can just scoop it in. Doesn't have to be exact. You can either do 1 cup or 2 cups at a time, but I wouldn't do more than 2 at a time. And this is if you have a large Vitamix type container. And then what you're going to do is just pour the water in and give it a wash. So I like to swirl it around. We're not going to soak this rice. We don't want it to absorb the water. We just want to really give it a good wash and take off anything that may have gotten on the rice and the transit to getting to your house. So from the time that the rice is sown to the time that it actually reaches your home, it can gather dust and things like that. And we just want to make sure that all the extra dust or starch that's sitting on the outside of our rice gets removed. So after you give it a good swish, then you can take it on over to the sink. So then we're just going to pour our rice through our fine mesh strainer. Get all of the rice into the strainer and then give it a rinse. And you just want to rinse it until the water runs clear. Try to get as much of the water out as you can. Then you're just going to leave it in the strainer and bring it over to your towel. Then simply pour the rice onto the towel. We're just going to dry it a little before we do our second step, which is to dehydrate the rice. So here I just spread it out. Dry it a little with my towel first. We're going to put it in the oven to dehydrate. If you have a dehydrate setting on your oven, that's great. If not, you can just put it on as low as it possibly goes. So you want to get as much of the moisture off of it now as you can. So you can just leave it to air dry, or you can take some paper towel and dab it dry as best you can. And of course, the oven will dry it and dehydrate it as well. Like I said, you can always leave it out to dry. If you have something else to do, you can do this step and then just let it sit. Spread out thin like this on a towel and just let it dry as much as you can for a while. But this is how I like to do it, because I want to get it done as quickly as I can and get to my baking. Then just fold up your towel, grab your baking tray, place a piece of parchment on it. Then bring back your rice and just pour it on. Then spread it out into a nice thin layer on your tray. You want to make sure that your oven is preheating at this point, if you have a dehydrate button, to 150 degrees Fahrenheit or about 66 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to take this over to my oven and dehydrate it. I'm going to dehydrate my brown rice for 30 minutes. If you don't have a dehydrate setting, just simply turn your oven as low as it will go. And in that case, you would need to roast it a little less time. If you only have one fine mesh strainer, just make sure to dry it really well at this point so that after the 30 minutes, it will be nice and dry. You don't want to be using it again when it's still wet, or all the flour will stick to it. And what a pain after all that work. So just give it a really good dry and then lay it out to continue drying. So my rice is now ready to grind. It's nice and dry and just a little bit toasted. So now we're just going to gather up the rice and pour it into our Vitamix. Place the lid on. And we're going to turn it on, making sure we start at the lowest speed, variable speed 1. And then slowly increasing the speed to high. After 30 seconds, we're going to want to slowly turn it back down to variable speed 1 and shut it off. And then we're going to have a look and see how it looks. And smells nice and fresh. So here's what it looks like after our first grind. It's quite lovely and soft. In fact, it feels very similar to how my store-bought brown rice flour feels. It's not super fine. It's more like the Bob's Red Mill texture. And to compare the two, here's my store-bought on the left and here's the homemade on the right. So the store-bought is a little bit more fine. And that's what we're going to achieve here. This one looks a little bit different color, but depending on where you get the rice from, of course, it'll be different. So this is a little bit more of a coarse grind still. So we're going to grind it a little bit further, but first we're going to sift it. A nice bowl. Place our fine mesh strainer on top. And then I'm just going to actually put my flour through it. So I'll just do a little at a time. And I'm just going to break up the chunks. I'm not pushing them through, but just breaking them up a bit. And you can see what's left here are some larger grains. So I'm just going to remove those now and then sift the rest. And by removing all of those larger grains, we're going to be able to get a more fine texture to our brown rice flour. Just make sure not to push the pieces through. If there's any chunks that have formed, which there probably will be, just pick them up and break them up a little this way, but don't push them through because you may end up pushing some of the bigger grains through and you don't want that. So now we're left with more finely grinded down flour. So we've got the store-bought and our homemade. So we're going to continue grinding. So we'll pour it back in. We keep it on low for a few moments. You can see it's turning around all the sides as well. And then we can turn it on high. After about 10 seconds, I shut it off and give it a mix, just kind of shaking it down the sides and do the same thing again. We're going to have a look and then we'll most likely be scraping down the sides and going a little bit further, but let's take a look and feel. Oh, that's feeling so much smoother now. I think it's almost ready. So now what I can do is to actually take it in batches, or I can just continue to scrape down the sides, which is what I like to do. Give it a mix. Just to kind of take if there's any that's stuck to the bottom or stuck to the sides, just to give it a little mix up, loosen it, place it back on, and turn it back on. I grind this in 10-second intervals until I reach the fine consistency that I'm looking for. So I think we're almost there. So I usually have to do this 3 or 4 times in total. So scraping it down a couple of times. Here we go again. We'll have a look. And if this is your desired consistency, then you're all ready to go. Oh my goodness, that feels even smoother than my store-bought flour. And it smells lovely too. So let's have a look and compare the two. So here we have our homemade brown rice flour, which is quite lovely and smooth. And then here we have our store-bought, which is also lovely and smooth. And I believe that the only difference I can feel at the moment is the heat. The one I made is a lot warmer at the moment because it just got ground. And the store-bought one is a little bit less colorful. And of course, depending on where the rice is from, it's going to be a little bit different. So now all that we have left to do is to take our flour and place it into an airtight jar. So if you have one of these little contraptions for canning, this actually works perfect to help you pour your flour into your jar. The wide mouth funnels for canning, this is perfect. And just like that, within an hour, faster than you can get to the store and back, you've got yourself some organic, gluten-free brown rice flour to use in your baking. Oh, it's so lovely. Soft. Enjoy. I decided to test out my brand new organic gluten-free brown rice flour by feeding Betty my brown rice sourdough starter. As you can see, first thing in the morning here, and look at that. So I take this as a very positive sign that my homemade brown rice flour is a success. I've got some pizza dough on the go.